The X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and coming to you from our broadcast center and studios on the escarpment here in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. As you can see by the image in the back, that is Hamilton. We are on the top of the Niagara escarpment overlooking the beautiful lake of Lake Ontario. Now you may be wondering, where is Hamilton? Well, Hamilton is in between Toronto and Niagara Falls on Lake Ontario, and if you'd like to visit us whenever you're passing through, either go to the beautiful city of Toronto or back down to see the world-famous Niagara Falls, drop in Hamilton, the home of the friendliest people in Canada. My guest this hour is John Nelson. He is the author of visionary novels Starborn, Transformations, and Matrix of the Gods, originally published by Hampton Roads Publishing, and I, Human, published by Cosmic Egg, and the upcoming The Miracle of Anna, published by Roundfire Books. He's authored nonfiction books, and I could get into them, but what I'd like to do is let you, the X Zone Nation, find out about our guest this hour. And John, welcome to the X Zone. Tell our listeners about yourself.
Well, I started off as a visionary fiction author.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote my first novel when I was 19 years old. And I tell a funny story to people. I think I was 17 years old, and I was in a public library.
Mm-hmm.
And like most 17-year-olds, I had my share of emotional problems. And a book fell on my head from
Ouch.
the top shelf of the library shelf, and it was Richard Hillman's book on yoga. Of course, I was in Norfolk, Virginia, and I never heard of anything Eastern at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so I read the book. It made a lot of sense to me. I bought a copy and started practicing yoga, and 50 years later, I'm still practicing it. And it led me on a search for alternative points of view. I just wasn't buying into my white-bread American Christian background, and I have made numerous exploration since then.
Do you think that book falling on your head was like Sir Isaac Newton getting clunked by the apple?
I think it was more like the talk between Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung when he was trying to explain synchronicity, and there was a big crack in the cabinet nearby.
Yeah.
And Jung said, "That's synchronicity."
So how would you classify yourself these days? Are you an author? Are you an energetic healer? Or are you both?
Well, I would say mainly I'm an author.
Okay.
I wrote my first novel when I was 16 years old, and I've been writing ever since. But my explorations have brought me into the arena of healing and healing myself. And my book, which is the subject of the conversation today, is a guide to energetic healing. And my use of the Castellanative technique of recapitulation to heal karma, to heal trauma, to heal abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it to extremely effective use and have written about it so that I think my readers can employ it, especially my male readers. with those with tattered histories in particular. It's a remarkable technique. But again, everything, like you, I imagine, I've been a self-explorer.
Yeah.
And I don't take anything for granted.
Right.
And even with recapitulation, I practice it. I read about it in Castaneda in the late 1980s and The Eagle's Gift. And I said, well, this is quite interesting. And at the time, I was involved in a couple difficult relationships, and I started practicing on it, and I saw that it worked. And that's all I cared about. I wasn't going to, that's all I really cared about. It worked, and it does work. And so I seem to be open. And what happens is things just fall into my life, like that book. I can give you an example.
Please do.
Of synchronicity. Both my father and my grandfather died of heart attacks when they were 49 years old, the week before Thanksgiving. In my 49th year, I took that week off and went to a doctor. But what happened, interesting enough, they died from high triglycerides. And so back in the 80s, late 80s, I came across a product called Kaolic garlic that is supposed to help with fungus and kill viruses. It's liquid.
Mm-hmm.
And I started taking it. And it wasn't until 15 years later when my doctor kept remarking that I had really low triglycerides that I researched it, and I found out that garlic eats triglycerides for lunch. So, it's just like, are these angelic beings? Am I, throwing things my way? Is it synchronicity? Is it some part of me? I think it's some part of us. Jung called it the, I can't remember exactly. There was a term he used, but the idea was that there was a function within our psyche that creates these kinds of situations for our own self-growth. And so, I constantly run into that because I'm open and I try things out. And my book is replete with all kinds of little tales and stories like that and things that have helped me and I think could help others in a wide variety of ways.
Now, what is energetic healing as illustrated in your book?
Okay, well, the Eastern model is that we have energetic bodies around us, starting with the etheric or the causal body right close to our body. Then there's the emotional body,
Yep.
the lower and higher mental bodies. We have these bodies around us. We are energetic beings. We aren't just physical beings. And what happens in our energetic bodies happens first there. And if we don't solve it there, then it moves down, the disharmony moves down into our physical body. So energetic healing, just from an abstract point of view, is applying energy to these bodies and clearing the residue of any trauma, abuse, or whatever is happening there before it gets down to the physical body and cause physical illness. Reiki, there are all types of hands-on healing that apply to this, but the most effective that I've encountered is the recapitulation. And that is, according to Castaneda, and actually not just Castaneda, this goes back thousands of years in Mexico, way before the Spanish conquest. And what they discovered is that the world is filled with energetic bodies. Everything has an energetic body. And what they discovered is that when we have an emotional, physical, sexual, even a loving exchange with another human being, cords or filaments of feeling and energy gets attached to them during this exchange, and it remains in them. And it can draw off our energy as they draw off our energy with their cords in us until we recapitulate that experience. And so recapitulation is a combination of combines a kind of Eastern energetic medicine with a kind of Toltec Castaneda energy, and to combine together, giving it a basis of an understanding, it can be extremely effective. I have used it for 30 years, and I use it today on a daily basis. Something bothers me, I have a conversation with somebody I don't like, I have an exchange with a IT person in India that doesn't go my way, and I could feel the upset in my energy field, and I just recapitulate the experience, and it's gone. Now, I had just to get a little further into this, I had a friend in New York, and she was having a very volatile relationship with a guy, and she was telling me about it. I said, well, why don't you recapitulate it? And she said, oh, what's that? Now, this is like 10 years ago. And so I said, I explained to her long distance over the phone, this very easy, simple breathing exercise. She was a dedicated meditator and yogi, so she applied it very easily. And she calls me back like 3 weeks later, and she tells me that she recapitulated the whole relationship, all the emotional stuff, all the angry stuff, all the stuff that was bothering her. She ran into the guy in the park, and they hardly knew each other.
Unreal.
Unreal, and this is actually what's happened. I've seen this myself. Now, what happens is that it releases the negativity between you by unplugging these cords, but it relieves both of you of these situations, so that you can go on from there. They didn't choose to go on from there, but very often it can bring a more loving attitude into a relationship or into any situation because you've unplugged all the trauma that's between the two of you.
All right, John, stand by. You and I have to take our first break. Exo Nation, John Nelson is our special guest this hour. His website is johnnelsonbookworks.com. Don't forget, check out Simul TV on how you can get your 2-box set that has over 500 video games, 80 specialty channels, including the X Zone TV channel, and you can download on demand hundreds of movies. www.simultv.com is that website. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. We'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone broadcast network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV. Plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
We live in rapidly shifting times of extreme volatility and uncertainty. Such profound change brings a unique opportunity for the evolution of consciousness. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, host of Mission Evolution Radio Show, a program that explores the latest scientific developments and deepening spiritual truths supporting human evolution. Join me on xzbn.net, where I interview leading experts in science, physics, medicine, spirituality, and more. By applying divergent viewpoints to leading-edge topics, we uncover expansive and evolutionary truth to assist you on your path to enlightenment. More information and past episodes are available at missionevolution.org.
Welcome back, everyone. Our guest this hour is John Nelson. He's the author of A Guide to Energetic Healing. His website is www.johnnelsonbookworks.com. John, can you give us some other examples of when this occurs and how we can heal ourselves?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that question. Can you repeat that, please, Rob?
Sure. I said, can you give us some personal or general examples of when this occurs and its effect on us and how we can turn it around?
Like I said, the cords of energy that get exchanged between people, I have an example in my book. And the example in my book is I'm a basketball fan of the Golden State Warriors, of course, and I give an example of people. Let's say you have an argument with somebody about a basketball game or a football game or whatever, and you let it go. But if it is an angry enough exchange, you created cords between you and them. And not only the cords between you and them, you created an energetic hole in your energy body, and it wants to be fed. So you're going to find yourself running into people. You're going to find yourself reinforcing those opinions and having more angry exchanges. Now, it sounds inconsequential, but let's say you're an angry person and you have 10, 12 of these arguments or these exchanges every day of your life. Well, that is you only have so much physical, even though your energetic body can replenish if you're living a decent lifestyle. That's energy that's getting drawn away from you. And with a lack of tonic energy in your auric field, like I talked about before, you will draw accidents, you will draw injury, you will draw disease into your life. We are energetic beings. And that's what Castaneda and his group were doing. They were recapitulating their entire life to draw back every ounce of energy that they had extended in the world so they could reinforce their energetic body. Of course, what they want to do with it is not something that most people want to get into, which is freeing the Nagual or the spirit body, which they control and can use at will. But I've extrapolated that process and applied it to dealing with abuse, and dealing with trauma, and dealing with everyday insults. I recently, I think it was about 6 months ago, I went to see a spy thriller at a movie.
Right.
And I thought it was going to be, it was really quite interesting. I thought it was going to be a spy who came in from the cold, something like that. But it had a lot of toxic violence, like a lot of films today. When I came out of that movie, I sat in the parking lot. I couldn't drive home. I had to recapitulate that experience to get that energy out of my field. Now, where was the course being created? After I did that 5 minutes or 10 minutes of recapitulation, I felt great. I went home. I drove home, no problem. But another part of the book, and this is quite speculative on my part, is that I feel that movies, videos, PlayStation stuff, all that creates cords. All the violence that you're seeing that creates a cord between you and them. Whether the movie is an energetic being in itself or whether it extends beyond the movie to the creators of the movie, I don't know. But I know those cords are being created. I can remember, having gone to bed at night and being uncomfortable or being something impinging on me. So I sat up and I realized that I had just gone to a movie, not just that particular movie, but another movie a while back, and there was some toxic violence in it, and it had affected me. So I cleared it. So, again, it seems inconsequential, but as we're going through our lives every day, we are constantly encountering things that impinge on us, that draw our energy, whether we know it or not. I mean, just going on the internet, all these cookies are getting downloaded, all this stuff that's happening on the internet, all this sexual undercurrent that's going on is creating currents with you. Cords with you that need to be unplugged on a daily basis. Or you're just drawing off and draining your body.
But how does that affect people who are not interested in the negativity that's in the world today? For example, if you don't want to watch bad movies, you don't go to the movie. If you don't want to listen to bad news, you don't listen to the news or watch the news because it's negative. In today's society, if it don't bleed, it don't lead. Negativity sells. So there are certain things that we can do as individuals to eradicate that from our daily life. So how does this affect the recapitulation then?
Well, if you're not creating negative chords, well, the chords of energy are both negative and positive.
Right.
I'm just talking about the negative. I'm just talking about the negative experience. But when you love somebody, you're creating positive chords between you and them that feed the situation. You want their energy in your field, and you want to be in their field as well because it's a loving exchange. So this applies to everything like that. But I use an example. Yeah, so you're right. If you disconnect and you're careful about exposing yourself to negative encounters, negative media, the negative things around your life, you're not going to find yourself impinged, and you're not going to find yourself being impinged in the way I'm talking about.
Right.
But it's very subtle. Now, I talk about it in the book. It also applies to some kinds of positive experience. Now, a lot of people go to sacred sites around the world.
Yeah.
They go to Egypt. They go to India. They go to the Andes.
Yeah.
And I have gone to sacred sites, and what I've discovered that in these man-made structures that were created by magicians long ago, there is energy there. And a lot of people naively expose themselves to influences that create chords, and maybe positive, mostly positive, I would hope, but possibly negative as well. Now, I talk about an experience in the book where I was living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I went to a Indian site, a Native American site, and I was meditating in this cave that was like at least 1,000 years old, and I could feel the impingement of some energy trying to introduce itself to me. I skedaddled out of there. And that night I was sure to recapitulate anything that might have happened. So, yeah, you're saying that you want to monitor your activities so you only encounter positive things. Well, some positive things, like even going to church. I mean, when you go to a Catholic church, you go to any of these churches, that's a very positive experience. But they have long histories, especially the Catholic Church. They have long histories. And when you buy into their histories, by going to their churches, you can you can create chords between those histories, I'm saying, and this is probably speculative on my part, and yourself. So, like I do, I recapitulate everything. And if I go to a Catholic church, like I've done recently because I had somebody in the family pass, I recapitulated the experience, and I found that, there were some things that I didn't want to carry away with me.
So how long does it take you to clear or recapitulate yourself?
Well, this is, again, now, Castaneda, in his book, The Eagle's Gift, and I must add that the extrapolation and the actual the extrapolation of that technique was brilliantly elucidated by Victor Sanchez in a book on recapitulation. He wrote a book, first of all, he called The Teachings of Don Carlos, but then he wrote a dedicated book on recapitulation. And what they recommend is what is called the list. You create a list. You start in the present, and you create a list of, first of all, you create categories. All the colleges you've gone to, all the businesses you've worked, different categories. And then you start in the present, and you start filling in the people in these categories from the present all the way going back to the past. And you make this list, and, sometimes these lists can take weeks or months, and it can be 20 or 30 pages long. Especially if you're like me, 70 years old, you've met and encountered a lot of people in your life. And what they recommend after that, and what Sanchez does, he's been conducting workshops for like the last 25 years, where people come to him. I think it's a 3 or 4 day workshop. At night, they get into they make a wooden box. They get into a wooden box. and they with their list, and they start recapitulating one by one these experiences. And the next day they next day they go to work because they have so much energy they don't need to sleep. But that's pretty dedicated. Now, I've never engaged in something like that because what I've done, and I've done maybe 1,000 hours of this, is just to go back from the present and list the major experiences, the major things. And once you get into it, other things start to pop up. Your energetic body is conscious, and it reaches out. You might talk about one incident with this person, but it'll bring up a dozen more. So you can make a list, but there's another way to do this, and that's called rigidity. Let me see. I made a list. That's called rigidity. That's the rigidity, formality, and rigidity. It's a systematic. Now, there's another one.
All right, we've got to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by, John. Exonation, John Nelson is our guest, www.johnnelsonbookworks.com. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and you're listening to us on the X Zone Broadcast Network, Talkstar Radio Network, Mutual Broadcast Network, Simul Radio, Simul TV, and iHeartRadio. Don't go away.
From our broadcast studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, to the world and beyond, you're watching the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net.
AVS Media Den.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com.
Welcome back, everyone. John Nelson is my guest. He's the author of A Guide to Energetic Healing, and his website is www.johnnelsonbookworks.com. John, would it be possible that there's a connection between these streams, the negative streams? Could they actually be represented to a person in a dream state in the form of a bad dream?
Well, of course, and let me just finish my thought from the previous session.
Okay.
What I said previously was that the making a list is one way of doing the recapitulation, especially if you're interested in a lifelong recapitulation. But there's another process that Don Juan in the Castaneda books talks about, and it's called fluidity, where you sweep your energetic breath across your energy field, you center yourself, and then the energy, and then you ask spirit to bring up what needs to be done. And you'll bring up the first episode, and if you're open, you do that thoroughly. What else is needed? And this can be a much quicker way of doing that and getting to the essential underlying causes of your disharmony. So either way can be recommended, and I explain both of them thoroughly in the book. Now, getting back to the question about these streams and dreams, of course, Castaneda had the art of dreaming. He had a lot about dreaming, and which didn't really appeal to me that much. I was, again, like I say in my book, there were a lot of things that I read in his books that didn't appeal to me because I just wasn't interested. What I was interested in was how to free myself of some of this trauma. And so in terms of dreaming, this would be kind of speculative on me because I've never got into like lucid dreaming and things like that. But we do have exchanges in the dream body. When we sleep, our dream body is definitely very active. And I would assume that these kinds of streams could happen in the dreaming self as well. Now, this dreaming brings me to like the second half of the book, which is about ways of accumulating energy and ways of a more balanced way of living once you've gone through clearing up some of this trauma using recapitulation. And I use a lot of Jungian techniques in the second half of the book. And one of them is what I call the compensatory factor or function. And Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychologist, he interpreted like 80,000 dreams in his life. And what he discovered, and this is a principle that applies across the board, what he discovers is that dreams very often are compensatory to conscious mind attitudes. Let's say you have an attitude about you have a breakup with somebody,
okay,
and you really feel I'm sorry?
I said okay. Yeah.
And so you feel very negative about them, and so you might have a dream of them walking across the water, like they're your savior. Well, that's not literally the case. What Jung would say is that's compensating an inadequate conscious attitude so that you'll bring it into more of a balance. So you'll have a more balanced perspective of the person that you're having this conflict with. And that compensatory function happens across the board. If you watch your life, your attitudes are constantly being informed by compensatory functions. Let's say an example I use, let's say you have a certain attitude towards, a negative attitude towards Social Security, and you're driving down the street and you stop at a bus, and there's a bus pulls up next to you, and there's a sign saying, about senior employment at Walmart. That everything is. We used to say, if this is a dream, what would it mean? That is compensating for your conscious attitude. Not to say that you got to give up your Social Security and go work at Walmart, but what it's saying is that you need to bring in a more realistic understanding. And that's what Jung brings to this. Everything in his universe is compensatory.
But how do we know?
Balancing everything off.
But how do we know Jung was right in everything? Why do we take his word as the final word? He could have been wrong.
He definitely can be wrong. But it's just like, again, with Castaneda, a lot of people think he pulled off the biggest literary hoax of the century. I don't feel that way at all. And the test, like I said with Castaneda, the test is with Jung. It doesn't work. And his stuff has constantly worked for me. In fact, there's a technique he uses called active imagination, where you talk with aspects of yourself. I can remember having a conversation in Los Angeles when I was there with one of my novels, writing a screenplay with the screenplay writer, and we were having a lot of problems because he was trying to convert the lead female character in my book to a young man's girlfriend. And, I wasn't going for that. And so we sat down, we were having this exchange, and I was talking to his shadow element. He was talking to my shadow element, and we couldn't get it resolved. But we were actually having a conversation. It was some aspect of ourselves doing that. Well, he got upset, left the meeting, drove down a one-way street the wrong way, got ticketed by a black female cop, and he calls me back and says, "Is this an anima? Is this my anima?" I said, "No kidding, Sherlock." So the universe is constantly, trying to balance our attitudes off.
Are we using the occurrences of our everyday life to try and make sense or try to fit the scenario into the way that we believe certain things? And is it a placebo effect or is it reality?
You mean, is our attitude about something?
Yeah.
What is precipitating what's happening in our lives?
Well, for example,
I think that's
okay.
I think it does precipitate what happens in our lives. But again, it's just like I said with recapitulation. I read about it as I sat down and started using it, and I saw it very effective. And I didn't have an attitude about it because it was something new to me. When the book fell on my head, and when I was 17 years old, I never heard of yoga.
Yeah.
I sat down, read the book, made sense. I started doing the physical asanas. I was having a lot of problems that cleared up. I was able to sleep again. I was able to go back to college because my head was clear. So it worked. So yeah, I think if you have a certain attitude about something, I think the attitude does draw things into your life, but it works the other way as well. If without an attitude, something can come into your life, and if you experientially work with it, it can prove very beneficial.
But wouldn't you say that what works for one will not work for the other?
Well, I think, and that, to tell you the truth, that has been some of the experience of my readers of this book, because the uninitiated have written some really kind of ridiculous reviews of it. But but again, that brings us back to just how different are we? I mean, just how different are we? It's just like we all have. We might have different experiences. We might have grown up in different milieus, different times, but the human experience is pretty universal. As we go back in history and we look at people and we look at their histories, we see some of the same things that are happening today. It repeats itself. So I think, and what Castaneda discovered and what the Toltecs discovered for thousands of years is that, there are some basic long components in our psyche, and this is what Jung discovered.
But
going back with archetypes, he discovered in some of his Middle Ages, some of his Middle Ages research, that these archetypes were popping up everywhere. They go back thousands of years, so there is some level of uniformity. These archetypes that he discovered 2,000 years ago in Egypt are still active today, and people are still dealing with the same sort of thing. So, I don't know if that answers your question, but
Not really.
again, it's just.
Listen, there's only two constants in that is inherent in each and every human on this planet. We're born and we die. They're the only two constants.
Yes, but yeah, but there are, when you look a little deeper, and you look into people's lives, and you see the patterns that are created in their lives, you see that there is a mechanism that's happening. No matter what their point of view, whether they're conservative or liberal, certain things happen precipitated by their orientation and by their attitudes. That brings me to Myers-Briggs. That brings me to typology.
All right, we're going to hold it right there because I've got to take my final break. Exonation John Nelson is our guest this hour. www.johnnelsonbookworks.com, and he's the author of A Guide to Energetic Healing. We'll be back on the other side as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We'll be back. Don't go away.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on SimulTV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is SimulTV. SimulTV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world. Interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. SimulTV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have SimulTV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com.
The concept of a new age has been around since the late 19th century, yet much of its original meaning has been lost. What exactly is the new age? Is it a religion, a collection of obscure esoteric practices, a series of doomsday predictions, or an astrological event? The New Age Chronicles is a unique complementary publication bringing reason and grounded information to separate fact from fiction. Chock full of valuable information to support you as we make the monumental shift into the new era. You won't want to miss a single innovative issue. The New Age Chronicles newspaper is coming soon to www.newagechronicles.com.
John Nelson is our guest, www.johnnelsonbookworks.com. John, do you believe that humans are more alike than disalike?
I think they're more alike than disalike, yes. And I think one of the tests of that is typology that Jung wrote about in the 1920s, and then it was later explicated by Myers-Briggs. And what he talked about and what he discovered is that we all had different kinds of orientations, and he isolated it down to 4 functions. We bring in information through our intuition or through our sensing ability, and we process it either through thinking or feeling. And those 4 functions vary in different ways. And what he discovered is, our orientations differ. Some people are feeling intuitive types, which is about 2% of the population. Most of the population are sensing thinking types. And because of that orientation, we see things differently. It doesn't mean that we're right and they're wrong. It means that we have a different orientation. And when we start to understand that and not demonize people because they have a different orientation than we do, or not create a war with the socialist companies because we're capitalists, and just realize that everyone has a different way of seeing things. And this is what the Myers-Briggs test is about. In fact, I edited a book with he had been on the Army's chief of staff, and they used the Myers-Briggs or this typology to create more harmonious groups, Army groups, all the way down from the top to the bottom, so that you didn't have too many thinking types and too many feeling types and too many sensing types, that you had a balance of each, that they all weren't going out there shooting people. Some of the people actually sat back and thought about what they were doing. So, yeah, and that's just amazing when you start to see that. And so if that typology works, and it seems to work across the board, you take these tests online, and it's just amazing what you discover about yourself. So I do think we are more alike than disalike. We have different orientations. We have different orientations. And what I talk about in the book, if you understand that, let's say you're a thinking, sensing type, and you go to a art museum with your wife, and you can't make any sense out of abstract expressionism because it doesn't make any sense to you, because you're a rational guy. But what you don't understand is that it's not representational. It's the artist is feeling the way about that. And so if you understand that, if you start to understand that, you can start to adjust your orientation. Maybe you'll read a book instead of going to a football game every Sunday. The wife is the same way. She goes to the football game with you. She thinks it's kind of stupid to see all this effort about putting a pigskin across the goal line. But when she's talking with her workmen, and this would be our animus, we call her animus, when she's dealing with workmen who are doing their kitchen, she can use that orientation to her own advantage by saying, do it my way or don't get paid. So, yeah, again, it's just amazing how things just compensate, how this compensatory function, you can see it everywhere, or at least I'm seeing it everywhere, not just Jungian, but across the board.
Well, let me ask you this. Hold on here. Whoa, let me get something in here sideways, okay?
Okay.
Let's take a look at Jung. He was pre-internet, right?
Yes, he was.
How has his philosophy, his psychology changed since the advent of the internet?
What do you think? Do you think there's been a change?
Big time. Big time.
In what way?
The internet is the largest septic tank that has been created by mankind because there's more crap in it than there is anything else. And when you look at Jung, he was a man of his time. It's just like people who worship Einstein. And they say, well, it can't happen because Einstein said it couldn't. Well, how do we know Einstein was right? How do we know that tomorrow there may be a new discovery that proves Einstein wrong? How do we know that tomorrow?
That's the history of science. Constantly. I mean, Einstein overthrew the science of his day, and somebody will come and overthrow him.
Right.
Now, in talk of Jung, he is a product of his time.
Right.
He definitely is a product of his time. But in terms of the junk on the internet, you know, he was the first to really talk about the collective unconscious, how there is a collective unconscious, and through archetypes, it does influence and weaves its way through, and the internet is just an extension of that. Now, personally, I've yes, there is a lot of crap on the internet, and if you want to get the orientation, you can go that way if you want. But I find it as a writer and as a novelist, I find it immensely helpful. I remember writing ghostwriting a novel about from a fashion novel for a client, and the setting was in Hong Kong in 1990. Well, I could go to the internet and find the hotels he was talking about and find the layouts on the internet of those hotels. So when I described the hotels, you know, it was actual.
Okay.
You know, so it's an amazing tool. Like anything, it's how we use it. And nothing is bad in itself. It's how we use it. No experience is bad in itself. It's how we come back and can be informed by it, to change our attitude, to evolve ourselves, become more conscious. You know, there is an Eastern philosophy. There's an Eastern philosophy, a Hindu philosophy that has an interesting formula. And let me read this to you. It says, the fundamental purpose of nature is for human beings to bring pure consciousness forth into the world. So the ultimate fulfillment of nature is why we essentially exist. We are here to bring consciousness into the world. That's how God, the collective, or whatever we want to call it, uses human beings who are cognizant to bring higher consciousness. And when we don't fulfill that function, when we don't do that, then we die off because we're no longer of use. Now, Castaneda had a whole thing about the ego's emanation, and they talk about something very similar about we experience life so that we can reinforce the ego's emanation, so we can reinforce what he would call their God image, and inform it. And when we're no longer informant, when we're no longer explorers, and we're no longer of use to it, then we die off. And that's one of the principles of nature, I think, which not everybody will probably accept.
Why is it the philosophers, the people in life who sit back and think a lot, don't do a hell of a lot, mind you, but they sit, they think, and they write? Why are they revered instead of the people who actually roll up their sleeves and get things done?
You know, I have an interesting anecdote about that. I said, you know, if you're out of groceries, you go to the grocery store and fill up. And I said, if you're out of consciousness, you go to a new age seminar and fill up. I think, and I can remember talking about it. I mentioned something in the book. I said every time I've had to move, it was my policeman brother-in-law and his crew came over and helped me move because all my friends were out meditating or doing yoga. So, and interesting, I was just reading in Victor Sanchez's book, The Teachings of Don Carlos. I was rereading a little bit, and he talks about that. He talks about the difference between just making everything an intellectual experience and actually applying. And he said, this is the problem with Castaneda's works, he said, and why he wrote that book, The Teachings of Don Carlos, is because people were just going off on tangents. They weren't really applying it. And what he did is started workshops. This is back in the 80s, where he applied these techniques and show how helpful they could be in people's lives. So, yeah, the application, again, is the importance here. And in terms of revering philosophers, in terms of revering teachers, I think they created a big con to suck the rest of us in.
I agree. I truly agree. Listen, John, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Tell our listeners where they can buy copies of your book.
Well, the publisher is Rainbow Ridge Books out of Charlottesville, Virginia, but it's on Amazon in the Kindle edition and the paperback edition. And if you go to my website, I have a listing for it. I'll take you to the Amazon site. But it's ready available. In terms of bookstores, if you want to be an activist, you could go into bookstores and ask for it and ask why it's not in their bookstore. That would help.
John Nelson.
The publisher would love you.
John Nelson, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Okay, thank you for having me, Rob.
Bye-bye
It
now.
was wonderful.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. John Nelson has been my guest this hour, www.johnnelsonbookworks.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. And the X-Zone TV show is exclusive on the X-Zone TV channel, and that's only with SimulTV. Visit simultv.com. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com. Are you or is someone you know struggling with addictions, depression, anxiety, relationships, low self-esteem, lack of confidence, grief, success, and prosperity? Do you know that your subconscious belief plays a big role in the outcome of your hard work? We can help you permanently change the beliefs that may be the reason for your struggles and failures. We care about getting you the return on your investment and the results you are looking for. We can help you be free of the limitations of your past and in realizing your highest potential. We work with people by phone and Skype. For more information, visit us at www.ritasoman.com. That's www.ritasoman.com. Do you think you have energy problems in your home? Do you feel better when you're away than when you're home? Joey Korn is a global leader in the world of dowsing who specializes in personal energy clearing and space clearing. He can help you create an ideal energy environment in your home no matter where you live in the world. Learn about his remote spiritual house cleaning services and much more at www.dowsers.com. You can get Joey's book, Dowsing, A Path to Enlightenment, as well as other dowsing books and tools, Kabbalah books, and Walter Russell books. Joey's work is really amazing. Go to dowsers.com right now. That's DOWSERS.com or call 1-877-DOWSING. That's 1-877-369-7464.